Chapter 2. May 1868, Stewart Farm, Tennessee. Ian Stewart made sure his son knew how ashamed and mad he was at Jed. His mother had died giving Jed life. The doctor had been unable to save her. Jed's dad loved his wife more than his life and hated his new son. Ian's hatred toward Jed fermented and spread until they were both bitter toward each other. Jed's sister and brother were treated with some respect and a touch of love from Ian, but Jed received none of it. Instead, he got all the blame for everything. The beatings came just about every day. As a boy, Jed tried to understand why he was beaten, but soon found it impossible. The only reason Jed could figure out was that his da hated him so much that he tried to beat him to death each day simply because he was still alive. He had learned to try to please his da from an early age, but the beating still came. Every night after a beating, Jed dreamed of the ways he could get back at his da. He knew he had to get away as soon as he had the strength and courage. He bided his time, and the day finally came. On Jed's 14th birthday, as he looked across the table at his da, he realized that he could look past the top of his da's head. This realization gave Jed the edge he needed. Jed followed Ian out to do chores. Caleb had already gone to the field, and Anna was cleaning up after breakfast. It was finally time. Da. Jed stopped walking. Ian stopped and turned around. "We need to talk," Jed said. Jed walked up to his da until he stood nose to nose. Ian glared at his son, and Jed glared right back. "What did you want to talk about?" Ian asked, a threat in his voice. "You," Jed said. "You'll never beat on me again." Ian said nothing. Jed briefly wondered what he was thinking, but shoved the notion aside when he saw his da set his jaw and tense up. "I'm leaving," Jed hissed through clenched teeth as he spun on his boot heel to leave. But Ian, shaking with rage, grabbed his shoulder and threw a fist at his son's face. Jed raised his arm to block the punch, and the two began trading blows. Jed had the advantage. He was taller and more agile. The hatred and bitterness that he had been harboring for 14 years came out through his fists. His da would find out what it was like to be beaten so badly he could barely walk. Jed didn't stop until his da lay on the ground, unmoving. Jed stared at the mess he had made, gave his da one last kick, turned on his heel, and stormed to the house. He grabbed his father's army revolver off the porch and left everything behind. There would be no more farming, no more beatings, and no more family. He would make his own way. The woods had always been Jed's friend. He often escaped into them and had learned much about how to survive in the woods. If necessary, he could live off the woods for years. Whenever he was in the woods, he was content, even almost happy. Today he was even more happy and content because he knew he'd never go back. He would live in the woods and have nothing to do with humans ever again. Jed strode forward with a purpose he had never felt before. As he worked his way into the woods, he took a deep breath, smelling the intoxicating, free air. His eyes remained ever alert as he let his feet carry him far away from his family. An abrupt notion occurred to him as he walked on. Would his brother and sister miss him? He dismissed the idea almost as soon as it came. They'd never done anything more than feed him and take care of his cuts and bruises. He came to the edge of a steep embankment and hastily stumbled backwards. He crouched down to look at the road he had almost fallen onto. On the road he saw a stagecoach with a dead driver and shotgun guard. He shuddered at the sight of the dead men. Then he saw movement. 3 men carried things to their horses, while another moved a tree out of the road. He watched with growing curiosity as each of the men worked without talking, discussion, or apparent signals. After they mounted their horses and the leader gave a signal to leave, Jed stood up to start on his way to freedom. The outlaws had already taken care of the bodies, and he saw no reason to involve himself or his emotions in anything. Jed was about to turn away and continue working his way further from his former home when one of the men saw him and yelled out, "Tom, there's a stray!" Jed stood frozen to the spot, staring down at the 3 men on horseback, unsure of what to do. These men had murdered the men for driving the stage. Had he escaped his da just to be killed in cold blood for accidentally stumbling on the robbery? Jed felt the blood drain from his face, and his hands began to shake. Should he bolt? No. That'd make him shoot me for sure. Jed stood with his arms hanging limply against his sides. He glanced down at the leader and worked up his courage to talk to the man. "What are you going to do with me?" "You with the stage?" Tom asked. "No, I ain't." Tom's eyes narrowed.